Hi, Jane.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing really well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm very grateful for you to have you here and for accepting this interview. I'm sure most of this Indian audience who are following this series of interviews will get benefited from this as well. So, friends, let me introduce you to Jean. And, you know, Gene is the creator of Tapping Q&A website here. What I can say, like more than 500 free tapping resources. You will have a huge list of topics to go with. So Gene was born in Casper and graduated from Catholic University of America. He found way to tapping when he was looking for something to help with his social anxiety. So there's a lot. He has studied hypnotism, NLP, guided imagery, parts work, and meridian based tapping protocols. He regularly works with clients from all over the world, one on one, over phone and Skype. He works with clients in number of areas, including stress, smoking, limiting beliefs, anxiety, learning disabilities, pain management, and relationship issues. So he has created different programs also, which we'll be discussing in a while, friends. So welcome once again, Jane here. I'm really happy about this interview. So, Jin, here is my first question to you. How did you get into EFT?
So I was in my 30s, in my early 30s. Professionally, I was a performer.
Mhm,
And as a performer, I could be on stage in front of thousands of people, and it was as easy as breathing. And I would get back home, which was Baltimore, Maryland at the time, and I couldn't answer my own phone. I couldn't ask for help in a store. When I got to the airport flying home, I'd get on the shuttle bus. I couldn't tell the shuttle bus driver to stop when we got near my car because my social anxiety was just so crippling.
okay,
And
okay,
so it had gotten to the point that it was really hampering my life. And so I just wanted to find something to manage that. And I stumbled onto tapping an EFT, and 6 weeks later, my social anxiety was gone. And so it was just through that personal hands-on experience of just seeing the transformation in my own life was the thing that kind of poked me and said, hey, this is something that you really need to go deeper with.
awesome, awesome. So I have seen this tapping Q&A website
Hmm.
is a go-to place for many of the EFT practitioners like me
Hmm.
across the world. So, like 2 weeks ago, also I was having this conversation from someone from UK. Like, hey Nizam, if you have any questions, there's a huge list of Jane's website. You can go there. There's like what inspired you to create such a huge resource of
Yeah.
Q&A
Well,
sessions.
yeah. So, and actually, I think this week we break 975 resources on the website. I never set out to create 900 resources. Basically, what happened in the very, very beginning is as I was having articles published other places,
Mhm.
people were emailing me and asking me questions. And I thought, boy, this is really inefficient to just respond to everybody one-on-one.
Yes.
So I just started taking the questions and just started answering them online. And initially just every so often, and then as I was doing it and as I was enjoying it and started getting some traction with it, I said, well, let's just create a publication calendar. And so I just started creating at least one thing every single week, and I did it for a couple of reasons. The first was to be helpful. Like I just wanted to share experience.
Yeah.
The second is every single time I have to sit down and explain something, it deepens my own understanding because it's not just something I understand in my head or my heart, but I have to give it words.
Mhm.
And in the process of getting it words, it actually makes me understand more. And it made me initially a much better practitioner because as I was explaining these concepts and I got them really crystal clear, when I was then working with my clients, if I was teaching them something or we needed to do something, I had already thought through the process. And then about 2 years into the website, I'm super dyslexic. It's really hard for me to read. And so
Really?
my primary way of learning is listening.
Okay.
And so I was playing around with podcasts just because they were fun.
Mhm.
And so I decided, well, what happens if I create a tapping podcast? And I did it for a couple of reasons. One, again, as an opportunity to share great resources. And two, it was kind of like getting free workshops with people from all over the world
Mm.
that I would, like I know you've already talked to Brad Yates. I'd just send Brad an email and say, hey, I'd love to interview you on this. And it created a great audio that I got to share, but it also meant for 35 minutes, I got to ask Brad anything I wanted. And so it was like a private workshop. And so it became this amazing opportunity for me to learn and learn and learn. And so I just created this rhythm to it. And so now, at a minimum, I put 2 new free resources on the website every single week, just because it continues to give me the opportunity to refine my thinking, to have amazing interviews where I get to learn stuff, and to get to keep sharing. So that's kind of where it came from.
Wow, that's so nice of you. Like you are helping not only fellow EFT practitioners, but many individuals all over the world who want to understand
Hmm.
EFT at much deeper level. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot for that initiative.
you bet.
Yes. And Jane, this might be a bit funny observation of mine.
Yeah,
I swap EFT sessions with different practitioners from various places.
yeah.
When I'm also a NLP master practitioner. So when I try something else,
Yep.
like no, this was not taught to us in our training
Hmm.
session.
Yep.
And is this EFT? No,
Right.
and we have to do EFT only this way.
Right.
So I know you have developed advanced EFT
Right.
practicing techniques, and you have explored various modalities. So, what's your suggestion for the EFT practitioners or individuals
Yeah.
about combining NLP with EFT?
Absolutely. So the way I like to think about tapping is I
Mhm.
like to think about a really simple math formula.
Okay.
Stimulating the tapping points plus tuning into the problem equals relief.
Hmm.
And so when we learn the basic recipe and we're saying this pain in my knee, this pain in my knee, this pain in my knee, the reminder phrase is helping us to tune into our knee. But the words themselves are not magic. They're simply a tool to get us to tune in. And it is possible for me to say absolutely nothing at all and be
Yes.
completely tuned into the pain. Like if I have a client who is just crying because they're so overwhelmed, they're not going, I'm really sad, I'm really sad, I'm really sad. They just need to tap because
Yes.
they're fully present to what's going on. And at the exact same time, I can be saying words and be thinking about the dishes that I need to be doing later.
Yeah,
Like I'm not
that's true.
focused on
That's
what's
true.
going on at
I
all.
can tap and just think of something else. Yes.
Yeah, like I'm completely not present to what's going on. And we
Hmm.
know that simply stimulating the points does help, but it's nowhere near as effective if we're not tuning in.
Hmm.
And so all of these other techniques, like all of the amazing tools that you've learned in NLP, are really effective tools in 2 ways. The first is they're very effective in uncovering aspects and root causes of what the issue is. Because of all of those tools that you use to tune in and pull this information out, we're getting out of, we're bad eyewitnesses to our own experience. That when I tell you why I am the way that I am, I might be right, I might be wrong. But
Mhm.
when we use a tool set like NLP, we're getting information from the subconscious mind, which is going to be much more accurate. So the first thing is it helps us to find information faster. The second thing is it's just one more way of tuning into what is going on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so how we tune in does not matter. And for example, like I have some clients who have really vivid imaginations, and so we can do lots of guided imagery work, and that's a perfect way for them to tune in. And I have other clients who, like, there's not pictures or movies playing inside of their head. That's not just the way their brain works. Therefore, guided imagery is really ineffective for them. And so when I'm using these other tools and these other techniques, and the funny thing is, and you know this because you're an NLP practitioner, is that before someone starts tapping with someone and they're asking questions of the client, they're using NLP tools, even if they don't even know that they're using NLP tools. And so someone who's pushing back saying, well, we have to tap in a particular way, they're actually doing the stuff that you already do. They just don't know it. And since it wasn't named in that way, and so it just becomes this really easy thing. And the single most important thing when we're doing anything, tapping or anything else, the question is, how's it working for you? And
Exactly.
if what you're doing is working, great, keep doing it. And if you'd like to have it happen faster or happen better or happen a different way, try something new. And the beautiful thing is with tapping is it takes me 90 seconds to try something new. And after 90 seconds, I have a new piece of information. This was useful or this wasn't. And then I go and try something else or I do it again. And so it's, for me, it's this constant feedback loop. The other thing that's really important, and most people don't think about this. So when Gary Craig originally transitioned to a single algorithm protocol called EFT, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. It is plural. It's not emotional freedom technique, it's emotional freedom techniques. Because even when he was creating the basic recipe, he understood all of the ways that people were going to innovate and build upon it in order to take this thing that is tapping and add this other stuff to make it more powerful.
Okay, that's awesome. And I also understood that you use age regression in your tapping.
I do.
Could you please share something about it?
Well, and so there's two different things. So there's age regression and there's inner child work. And I actually do a lot more inner child work than I do age regression work. And the difference between those two, for people who aren't familiar with those things, age regression is where I feel like my 5-year-old self. And that's a very specific hypnosis tool. Where inner child work, what we're doing is we're having a conversation with the younger version of ourself. And so for me, one of the questions I like asking when someone has an emotion that is coming up and they're feeling it, I ask the question, how old do you feel when you feel that emotion? And you'll see them think for a second and they're like, 7. And it's like, and you can tell this isn't something consciously they're figuring out. They're just as surprised because they haven't thought to have that question. So in their mind, what we then do is we then do a tapping session where we're working with the child. So they imagine their 7-year-old self, and it's not a literal representation because none of us remember what we look like at 7.
Yes, yes.
But we imagine our 7-year-old self, and so then myself is having a conversation with the 7-year-old self that is being mediated by the client. So as we're tapping, I'll say, ask 7, because I'll just refer to it by its age. Ask 7, what's 7 afraid of? And you'll see them go interiorly for a second. And they're afraid that dad's going to come home and be really angry. And so what we're doing is we're using this as a way of unpacking the fears from that time. And something that is really important is when we're doing this sort of work, we are not uncovering hidden and forgotten memories. So if someone says, I'm afraid of this, their 7-year-old self, they're not reporting history. What they're doing is they're just explaining how they understand the experience. And because we're using the imagination and because we're using the creativity of a 7-year-old, in that process, we might be describing things in a way that is not accurate as in history. It did not specifically happen this way, but the truth of what is being said is telling the story that the subconscious mind is operating out of. And so it just becomes another way and a much faster way. And when we're doing this, like, I'm not having a client say phrases. So basically it's like, what's the child afraid of? And they'll say, well, she's afraid that when dad comes home. Tell the child, tell 7 that dad is no longer here and they're safe. And they'll go internally. And so there's no phrases being said back and forth. It's like, as we continue to have this dialogue, because again, let's go back to our formula. Tap plus tune in equals relief. I think one of the mistakes practitioners make all the time is they go, great, tell me about your problem. And the client tells about the problem. And they go, okay, now let's start tapping. Well, if you're telling me about the problem, you're already tuning into the issue. So why don't you, while you're answering my questions, why don't you just tap in the collarbone for me? So as my clients are talking about what's going on, I just have them tapping at the exact same time. Then once we have the information, then we start doing more traditional tapping. And so when we're doing this sort of inner child work, it gives us the ability to have the conversation back and forth, extracting information, figuring out what is going on. And the whole time we're tapping, and just basically every few moments move to the next point, every few moments move to the next point. And it gives us the opportunity to, again, tap plus tune in equals relief.
Awesome. And do you think having knowledge of hypnosis helped you to work with your clients at much deeper level?
100%. Oh my gosh. Because the reality is that when we are doing hypnosis, we're actually putting someone into a light trance.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can measure in the brain waves and we can actually see on a depth of trance scale. Because what is hypnosis? Hypnosis is nothing more than the hypnotist giving instruction and the client following it. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to feel relaxed. I want you to tap on your chin. I want you to tap on your collarbone. Like it's the exact same thing. And so even though most tapping people have not been trained in hypnosis, without realizing it, they're actually executing hypnosis principles in the way that they're doing. At one point, before we had the scientific research we have today, there was actually a hypnotist who claimed that tapping did nothing. It was just a form of hypnosis. And the tapping was the induction. We now know that that's not true. We now know that there's actual biological change from tapping, but he was so convinced that the way we were tapping was attached to hypnosis that it actually was hypnosis. So I found my training in hypnosis, it's not a necessity, but I found it super, super valuable.
Okay. Maybe that's the reason you are able to make difference in a lot of people's life with your unique tools, so that
it makes it so much faster.
Deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because, you know, again, like this idea of inner child work and age regression, those are hypnotic tools. And, you know, in NLP came out of hypnosis. Most people, when they get an NLP certification, they also get taught Ericksonian hypnosis.
Yes.
Because the tools are so connected in what's going on. And the reality is if I'm not putting you into trance, I'm just doing waking state stuff. Like it's a very light level of trance. So all of that stuff's going on. And so by studying hypnosis, I have a deeper understanding of that. So I can leverage it in a conscious way, not just accidentally do it because someone taught me how to tap, but I'm doing it, not understanding why.
That's awesome. Jane, very common problem, anger. And you have written an exclusive book about anger.
Yeah.
And can you please tell about the book and
Absolutely,
how
yeah.
it helps?
Yeah, so I was really lucky. When I currently live in New York City, but when I lived in Baltimore, for 2.5 years, I got to teach an anger management class in a jail. Okay. And it was a month-long class where twice a week the guys came in for 2 hours.
Month-long class only on anger.
And it was twice a week. So basically it was every Monday and Wednesday for 2 hours for 8 classes just on anger. And it wasn't just on anger, and I'll tell you that in a minute.
Oh, right.
And so the guys could take the class as many times as they wanted. So I was teaching inmates how to tap. And because of the nature of what was going on, lots of guys could not make it to class. Like they had work, or they were doing drug rehab, or they were working on getting their high school diploma. And so I took all of the elements from the class and I turned it into a book so the guys who could not be in class could work through the book.
Okay.
But again, it wasn't an anger class. So the way I taught the class is I would teach a concept, and then I would teach the guys a tool, like 6 or 7 questions to answer about forgiveness, where they'd write the answers out, and then all they would have to do is read their answers and tap along to it. So basically I was giving them tools to write tapping scripts on their own.
On their own. Awesome.
On their own, absolutely. Because so basically, if the guys learned the steps and they took the worksheets back to their cell, all they had to do was answer the questions. They didn't have to understand tapping. They didn't have to understand the questions. They just had to answer the questions and tap along to it. And so the book was just that. But one day we're in class, and so I teach the idea, I teach the tool, and all the guys are trying it. So they're doing their homework and they're writing it out. And one of the guys stops and he looks up and he goes, "Mr. Gene, this isn't an anger class. this is an emotion class. And then he pauses and he pauses and he pauses and he goes, and I'm okay with that. And he goes back to work.
Okay.
But we
Good that he
called
was
it,
not angry with that.
right, absolutely. But he wanted me to know he wasn't tricked anymore. Because the reality is, for an incarcerated American male population, the only negative emotion that they are allowed is anger. And
Oh,
every other negative emotion was seen as weakness. So sadness gets turned into anger, frustration gets turned into anger, disappointment gets turned into anger, weakness gets turned into anger. And so by calling it an anger class, they were willing to engage in the conversation. But the
okay.
reality is that was just the doorway to go in and do all of the other stuff. And you know this happening with people. People show up and they think this is the problem, and really this is the problem. But if we started down here, they wouldn't engage with us. We
Yes.
have to engage with a client at the issue and the level that they are ready to start with. And so in that circumstance, so the book, I just basically took all of those tools. So the reality is even though it's called an anger book, it's really the best tapping tools that I have for everything. And it's called an anger book as a marketing exercise. So anybody who just wants to get better with tapping and using it can use the book, and they just ignore the fact that it has the word anger on the cover because it's not really about anger.
It doesn't matter which emotion people
That's
have, they
right.
can get benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because what it is, again, it's all tools about helping you to tune into the issue. Because the more effectively we tune into the issue, the more powerful the tapping is. And so it's just all of these little simple tools, questions and frameworks and ideas to get you to think about the problem, which then put you in a pace that allow you to create some change because of that.
And Jin, throw something at the end of the description of the book.
Hmm?
If one person buys, then four people get benefited. So what is
Yeah.
this concept about? I did not understand.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So as an individual in the United States, I
Mhm.
cannot send a book to somebody who is in jail
Okay,
because they're
okay.
afraid that I'm smuggling something into the jail.
Mhm.
But if a bookstore sends a book to someone in jail, it can get to them.
Wow. Okay.
And so I use the platform inside of Amazon to create the book. So I can buy the books at cost. So every single time someone buys a book, all of the profits from that book goes to buying books for people who are incarcerated. So
Okay.
from time to time, someone sends me an email and says, hey, my cousin is in jail. Here's his mailing address. Can you send him a book? And so then I'm able to, from the money from other people buying books, buy a book and have it. And 10 days later, in his cell, in his jail, he will have a copy of the book.
Wow, that's an
And I
amazing
sent them all over the
initiative,
world.
Jin.
Yeah. And so it's an opportunity to share a really great tool, but it's also an opportunity for people to touch the lives of people they wouldn't touch otherwise. And it just makes it a really simple, powerful step by doing it that way.
It's awesome. Such a great initiative.
Yeah, yeah. It was it. I it, you know I I'm glad that I've moved to New York, but one of the things I missed the most about living in Baltimore was getting my chance to work in the jail. Like it was really wonderful, powerful work.
That's awesome. And uh, Jin, I have seen about tap along the videos, tap along with Jin
Hmm.
audios about it. In your website,
Yeah.
tap along with Jin audios. So, what inspired you to create that so that someone who could not?
Well, yeah. I mean, so the thing that the question I get the most from people is in my inbox are, what are the phrases I'm supposed to use for X?
Okay,
Like
okay.
because people are mistaken and think that the words are magic.
Hmm.
Because as a practitioner, like we become very comfortable with this thing and people think we have some superpower to come up with perfect phrases. And we don't. We're just, like I will tap with a client and we'll say 18 things and they'll go, when you said that one thing, it was perfect. And they're ignoring the fact that I said 17 things that were unuseful. I just happened to say one that
Yes,
was good.
yes.
And so the idea of creating all of these tap along audios and tap along videos is to just make it a little bit easier for people to tap for issues on
Okay.
their own. because for the average person, like, tapping is weird. Like, it's just weird. And then it's even weirder when you're sitting at home by yourself. Not only you're doing this weird stuff, you're like talking out loud to yourself. And so for some people, that barrier is too high of a barrier to get over. And so by thinking in these terms and giving folks something to tap along to, you're lowering that barrier. Like, I don't have to think. I don't have to come up with the phrases. I can just hit play and I can just follow along with Gene, because Gene's going to take care of the heavy and the hard work for me. And so it's just a way of giving people really simple things to be able to, solve that problem of getting over the hump of being able to tap on their own.
Okay, that's awesome. And there was also, like, whoever is getting started with EFT, there was a personal mentoring program mentioned. So what inspired you to mentor the fellow EFT practitioners?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that at this point I've been tapping for almost 15 years.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I've made lots of mistakes along the way, like just have done things that have been ineffective and gone down wrong paths. And I really like being in a situation where I can help people avoid that particular pitfall,
Okay.
where they can have the opportunity to, like, I'm in the same experience. Like, one of the reasons I did the podcast was to learn from other people's experience.
Yes.
And if I can learn from your mistakes so I don't have to make that mistake, it's a
Yes.
huge win for me. And so I really love being in a circumstance of working with people to help them to figure out, not to make a bunch of clones of me, not to make a bunch of people who tap
Yes.
exactly like me,
Hmm.
but instead to help them to find the way that works best for them and what is their voice as a tapper, so that as they're navigating all of this, they can do it in a more effective way. So I just enjoy that particular process.
Excellent. So that the other person need not reinvent the wheel.
What's that?
Instead of, why to reinvent the wheel which is already available?
Yep.
And Jim, I have also seen that you are helping people with learning difficulties. So
Yeah.
please tell about EFT for special
Yeah,
education
yeah,
teachers.
and so yeah, I came to that again because I'm dyslexic, and that's the place that I started. I know what that experience is, and the work is twofold. The first is the emotional response to what we are experiencing. Oftentimes, we just want to deal with the problem, but there is the emotion about the problem. And so someone who has a learning disability, there is the frustration, there is the feeling like it is unfair, there is the I am stupid. So even before we get to the actual learning struggle, there's this emotional layer of stuff that's really complicated that's laid over the top of it. And so the first thing that we do is we just spend time clearing that particular emotional piece so that it is easier for people. Because if I am less emotional, whatever thing I'm struggling with is less hard. Like, it just makes it
Okay.
easier for me to navigate, because I don't have a hurt knee and I'm frustrated. I'm just have a hurt knee. And so
Okay.
that's the first thing that we do. And the second thing we do is we just spend time, just gently working on the issues, trying to make it so they turn around. And sometimes we can do that, and sometimes we can't. Sometimes there are issues that tapping is not able to turn around. But even if we downshift the emotion around the issue, it makes it easier to manage, because then I'm in a better emotional place when I'm trying to do difficult things, which is always easier.
Okay. So you're telling that if anyone has learning difficulties, first EFT helps them to settle their emotions. But what next? How is EFT making difference to the people who have learning difficulties?
Um, you know, this is one of those things where I can't tell you exactly how it works,
Yes.
because we are still early on in this sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, what we have found is when someone is sitting down to do whatever it is they are going to do, and they tune into the reading difficulty, the writing difficulty, the comprehension difficulty, and if they do some tapping on the particular thing that they struggle with before they do it, in many cases, it is less of an issue for them.
Wow.
And even if it doesn't, and the other thing that's really important to recognize with this and everything else, success is not an all or nothing proposition. Like, it's not like it's only successful if I get rid of everything. You know, if I make it so someone is doing something a little better or a little easier, then that's worth the time and effort. And so when we're working with things like learning disabilities, oftentimes we're not changing it. We're just reducing it in such a way so whatever they're doing is easier. And you'll notice I didn't say easy. Like, it still might be hard. It is just less hard than it was before, which is the best we can hope for sometimes.
At least here EFT is helping them to remove their frustrations, their emotions, and then move ahead. That's
Yep.
amazing. Yes. And any plans to write other books, G?
Actually, I'm in the middle of writing a book right now. I can't talk about it.
Yes, yes,
But but yes, I actually am turning in the final manuscript on Monday. It will come out in January. It's really fun. I'm super
just
excited
like
about it.
stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned. Watch this
Stay
space.
tuned. Yes, and maybe probably let's discuss about the men's health. Uh, Jean, men should not cry.
Right.
You know, all this stuff somewhere it has made people like, kind of numb to their emotions.
Yeah.
So could you please share something about while working with men, because I
Yeah.
asked the same question to Brad as well, so just wanted to
Yeah.
see the
Okay. Yeah.
experience of different people.
So this is the framework that I use, and
Yes.
and people cotton to it well, and I think men do more than others. And
Hmm.
the idea is that if we frame emotion as information, then it becomes a different thing. And this is what I mean by that. The information of sadness is that I'm disconnected from something that is important. The
Okay. Okay.
information of frustration is I don't have one of my needs met. The information of fear is I perceive something as dangerous. The information of anger is I perceive an attack.
Okay.
And so when I am able to translate the emotion into a piece of data, men, because they have a tendency to be a little more analytical and have a tendency to deal with data a little better, it immediately shifts it. So it is no longer, I am weak because I'm feeling this. Instead, my system is trying to communicate something really specific with me. And so when I recognize that, then I get to ask the question, it's not what's wrong with me, but what need is not being met? What loss am I recognizing? What perceived attack do I recognize? And so then it becomes an analytical problem to figure out what is going on. It's not a statement about who I am and being weak and feeling that way. And so by using that as a framework, it makes it easier to accept. And as a tapping practitioner, it actually makes it easier for us to be successful. Because when you're angry, the first question I am asking, or I'm going to be asking my client is, great, ask the anger, what attack does it perceive? And so all of a sudden, it's given me a question to give insight, and you can literally see clients go, oh, it's worried about this. And all of a sudden, we've uncovered an aspect. So in all settings, regardless who we are talking to and how much they are in touch with their emotions, recognizing it as information is a powerful way for us to get more information in tapping, but it also makes it safer for men to acknowledge their emotions, because it's not about strength and weakness. It's about, me feeling sad is no different than me feeling pain when I stub my toe.
Okay.
Like when I stub my toe, that pain is information. It is my
Yes.
body telling me that there is an injury. I need to pay attention to it and take care of that.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like I'm failing as a man because I feel physical pain because someone punched me, because I recognize that is a natural consequence of information being communicated. And so if I can shift my disposition to recognize that feeling sad is just information, there's a part of me that's saying there's something really important that we don't have anymore. Let's acknowledge that fact.
Awesome. Awesome. So it's emotions are just body's way of telling that, hey, look at, there's something to
Yep,
be taken
absolutely. Yeah.
care of. Excellent.
Emotions are just information. That's all they are.
Good. That's a new perspective. Thanks for sharing that, Jin.
You bet.
And Jin, what's your advice when people say that I don't know what to say while tapping?
Yep. So the first thing to do is say, I don't know what to say while I'm tapping. I can't figure out the words while I'm tapping. I don't know what to say while I'm tapping. I feel really silly not knowing what to say while I'm tapping. And that's the place that I start. The second thing that I do after I do that is just describe what is going on. Tell me the facts.
Mhm.
At work today, so-and-so did this. And then the second part is, and it makes me feel this. That's it. Imagine the easiest way to do this is imagine a friend goes, hey, what's going on? And you just start telling them the story about your day. Tell the story about your day and tap. And that is the easiest way in. Because you already know how to describe your day. You already know how to describe what makes you sad. You already know how to describe what's going on. And that's all we're doing when we're tapping. But for some reason, when we tap, we think, again, the words have to be perfect and I have to do this right. And that gets in the way of us. Just imagine you're talking to a friend and telling them what's going on. Tap to that. And as you do that, as the emotion decreases, you get clarity about the issue, and all of a sudden more details are there. And you know what this is like even without tapping. When you're explaining a really hard day to a friend, as you're saying it out loud, it's like, oh yeah, and oh my gosh, I can't believe. And like you are getting clarity as you are talking about it. There is this misconception that I have to know what I'm going to tap on before I start tapping. Because we say, you have to be specific to be successful. That's not it. We need to be as specific as we can. And sometimes as specific as I can is, I feel bad. I feel bad. I feel bad. I feel bad. And that's all the specifics I have, but that's as specific as I can get. So that's where I'm going to start. And so as I tap on, boy, I feel bad. I feel really bad. I feel really bad because today at work, and all of a sudden the details start showing up because as we're tapping, the emotion is reducing, which means we have more clarity about what is going on, which means we will find more words. So we don't have to have it figured out before we start tapping. We start tapping on what we have figured out, which will give us more information.
Awesome. And what's your answer for the people like, EFT is not working, I have been tapping, EFT is not working. So why do you think people are
Sometimes
saying,
tapping doesn't work.
yeah,
That's the reality of it. Sometimes tapping doesn't work. The other thing is oftentimes if someone is not having success with tapping, they're trying to tap on too many things at once.
okay,
And again, we want to be as specific as possible. And sometimes we can be more specific. Like, again, if you were describing your problem to me and we were just having a drink somewhere, we met for some tea, and we're talking about what's going on, and you tell me, I feel really bad. And I go, okay, tell me more. Like you'd think about it for a moment and you'd come up with a few more details. And I'd go, okay, that really stinks. Tell me more. And so if someone else is on the other side of what's going on, we can keep finding details about what is going on. And when we're
yes,
working on our own, doing the exact same thing. So if you're not
true.
having success, ask yourself the question, well, tell me more. Tell me more, tell me more, and keep getting more and more detailed. The other thing is sometimes we are too close to an issue to be able to tap on it on its own. I have been working professionally with clients for over a decade, and there is someone I pay to tap on my issues with me because
Yes,
I recognize I am too close to understand my own issues and I need to have someone's outside perspective. Sometimes we're just too close to what's going on to be able to figure out what's going on. And so the other thing is if you're not having success and you're doing all the things we talked about, now is the time to find a practitioner. Now is the time to find someone who's really skilled, who isn't living in the middle of your head to help you manage what's going on. And you might find more relief that way.
that's amazing. So you're open to take help from others.
Absolutely. I'm not open. It's a necessity in my
It's a
life.
necessity.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yes. 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 Yeah. And at different points in my life, I need more help than others. But there's no point in my life in which I don't benefit from an outside perspective on what I'm doing.
Why not? Yes.
You know, Yeah, I always want to have a support system around me to help me see things, because I am so close to my own experience. I have blind spots and there's things that I'm missing all the time.
And uh, EFT feels weird. EFT is funny. So what's your
Mhm.
comment on that?
It is. And
It
when
is.
EFT feels weird and funny, tap on that. This feels really stupid. I can't believe this is going on. But it's only taking 90 seconds. And the worst thing that's going to happen is I'm going to look a little silly while I'm wasting 90 seconds. You know, like I love tapping on being afraid that tapping is going to work. For whatever reason, people won't tap, but they will tap on not knowing if tapping is going to work.
Yes.
So yeah, it's weird. And in saying that out loud, like anytime I can normalize an experience, it's easier for me. This is really weird. Okay, I've named it. Now I can do what I need to do.
Okay, nice. So, and what's your message to the people who want to better their EFT practicing skills, like who want to be a
Yep.
better EFT practitioner? Your advice?
Tap all the time. Like, it's so easy for us to want to like download programs and watch videos and listen to podcasts. And please come listen to my podcast. I want you to use those resources. But the place that you are going to move forward the fastest is by doing it, because you're going to get feedback from your own experience. You know? So tap more, tap more, tap more. And that is the way that's going to make you more comfortable. It's going to make you more competent, and it's going to make you more confident as you're doing that.
And any books do you suggest for the EFT practitioners, Jim?
So I'm a really big fan of Peta Stapleton's most recent book, The Science of Tapping,
Yes.
that she goes through all of the research. The other book that I would recommend, let me grab the title for you here. And this is someone who is going to be on my, I've already done the interview, but the podcast is coming out soon. Let's see here. Sorry about that. I wish I would have known this. You're going to ask me this. The book is called It Didn't Start With You.
Okay.
And the author is Mark Wolynn, and it's spelled Wolynn. And it is about the genetics of trauma.
Oh.
And it shows how previous generations experiencing trauma pass down that trauma to us through our genes. And oftentimes when people really struggle with something, they're trying to find an experience earlier in, like, I'm afraid of water, or I'm afraid of heights. And they're trying to remember a time in their past where they had a bad experience and they can't find one. That's because it wasn't them. It was something that happened a generation before. And so we can actually have trauma passed down genetically. And so Mark's work does a really good job of helping you to figure out how to uncover that and how to clear it. And Mark is not a tapper, but he really thinks tapping works along with it as another way of doing it. So you can use his work to help uncover things. So it's really interesting stuff that most people in tapping aren't talking about, because we're always trying to find, where's the past experience? What's the limiting belief? Well, what do you do when there's not a past experience and there's not a limiting belief? Like, how do you find it then? Well, you go in and you find it in the genetics.
Okay, it's in your genes.
It is in your genes, absolutely.
And Jane, for non-EFT practitioners, generally, like day-to-day situation, people have frustrations, especially in this pandemic, who feel like uncertainty, and a lot of things are going on. What if I lose my job, or what happens? So, any suggestions to them?
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do while tapping is to do it with a pen and a piece of paper. And so when you're sitting down, before you tap, get out a piece of paper. And again, imagine a friend's ask you, what are you worried about right now? And just write down all of the worries that you have. Get them out of your head onto a piece of paper, and then just take them one at a time. And you'll find in many cases, just by getting it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, it gets smaller. but then just tap on each one. And again, it doesn't have to go away. It just has to reduce a little bit to make it easier, but don't make it complicated. Just like, what am I afraid of? Write it down, write it down, write it down. And then just take them one at a time.
Amazing. And out of the available EFT techniques, what's your favorite and why?
Tap. Just do it.
Just do it. Okay.
Do it. Yes. Yeah. Like, again, like, it's important that we ask questions about how to do things better.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we get so wrapped up in trying to do it better, we don't do anything because we're spending all of our time trying to do it better. Just do it.
Yeah.
Talk about what's going on, talk about the emotion, and tap. And like, because what will happen is, again, you will become more confident and comfortable tapping, which will make it easier for you to do. Just tap.
And Jin, while tapping, usually I observe that some people are not comfortable talking about their past. Some people are not even comfortable thinking about it. So do you feel it's necessary to always look into the past? Why not move forward? Why not,
Well,
just work
so
on current
yeah.
situation?
So the reality is if there is a limiting belief in the subconscious mind, it's going to speak itself if I'm saying something positive or if I'm saying something negative. So let's take an easy example like losing weight. Okay. I could tap on the issue, I'm never going to lose weight. Like that is a belief that I have. Okay. But I could also say, I'm going to lose 25 pounds. And my subconscious mind goes, no, you're not. You're never going to lose weight. So it doesn't matter if I'm focusing on the positive or the negative. The negative is going to show up, and that's the thing I'm going to tap on. So it doesn't matter where you start as long as you're bumping into the resistance. And so if it is more comfortable to think about what you want to become, as you do that, you're going to uncover the negative stuff that's in there in the way because it's going to speak itself as you're trying to navigate this.
So it doesn't matter if we are, if we don't want to look into the past also, while working, anything that is limited would definitely surface
It's going to
to the
speak
mind.
itself. Yeah.
Okay.
The subconscious mind is always going to speak what it thinks is the truth. Like the subconscious mind is not going to allow you to say something that it believes is untrue. It is always going to argue back. And if I'm having that argument while tapping, that's all I need to do.
Argument tapping also, like, it's one of my favorite. I don't want to do it. I want to look at it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the other thing. Yeah. Tap on the issue about the emotion about the issue.
Yes. And some people would not be able to feel their emotion, or no memories coming out. And I don't know, I'm bothered, but no emotion, no memory. So what's your suggestion on such situations?
Okay, so if you can't come up with information, you need to be working with someone else. Like that becomes a great point. Like if you can't, like if doing these things does not get you to a place where you're able to uncover it on your own, you're too close. Now it's time to go. Like tapping is a great tool to work on your own, but a surgeon should not be doing surgery on themselves.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, and so at a certain point when you're bumping into roadblocks, that is the perfect time to reach out, you know.
That's simple.
Yeah.
And do you feel that, Jane, that getting certified in EFT helps a lot than people who just want to pick up EFT from books and then just get started?
The thing that is really important is to train in a circumstance where you are getting evaluation on you doing the skill. And so where you have supervision, where someone is watching you work with clients so they can give you feedback. That can and cannot happen inside of a certification program, but you need to be guided by someone who is well skilled, who can give you feedback.
That's awesome. Because, I watched some videos, and let me try on others, because I see these curious people. So that's why I just wanted to ask from one of the experts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So training and supervision helps a person to
absolutely. Yeah. Again, anytime you can work with someone who's been there before and is good at teaching, it's going to make it easier and more effective.
Yes. So having mentor helps a lot.
100%.
100%. Right. So that's all for today's interview, Jean. And people who want to reach out to you, any message to them, like, what are the various services Jean
Yeah.
offers and all that
Yeah, well,
stuff.
the easiest way to find me is to go to tappingqanda.com, tappingqanda.com. There's, like I said, over 950 free resources. If you want to contact me directly, just click on that contact link, shoot me an email. I love hearing from people and answering questions. That's why the website exists.
Okay, so thank you very much, Jean, for the amazing insights. Trust me, it was like I'm sitting in a training session and getting trained instead of
Good,
this.
absolutely. That's why we do this stuff.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like an interview. It was like, more of a training session
Well,
for
good, I'm glad.
advancing the skills. So that was a wonderful experience, and I'm sure, friends, you all have enjoyed Jean's interview as well. And please do visit tappingqna.com. There is huge pool of resources. You are going to get immensely benefited. And book on anger, I'm really looking forward to read that book, Jean. And
Yep,
I'll definitely share my experience with you as well. Thank
great.
you
Thank
very
you very
much
much.
once
My
again.
pleasure.